Okay, let's get this straight. You were driving for 12 hours. Why? Well, because your car broke down and you had to drive to a mechanic that was just open 24 hours. Okay, so you're exhausted, you find a motel. Yeah, but why did you have to stay in the most disgusting one? There were plenty of other ones. Look, I'm sorry about the state of the room, but you should see the state of my closet. Oh, wait, never mind. Can we focus on the main problem here? The woman at the front desk was shady as hell. I agree, but she gave you the key and showed you to your room. Yeah, well, that's what she's supposed to do. And she was clearly doing her job because you paid for the room and you stayed there. That is true. And look, I don't want to talk about the creepy quality that may or may not have been living in the wallpaper. But even you have to admit that was an extremely long time to stare at a wall. Well, okay, fine. But that still doesn't explain the closet. Alright, maybe I should start at the beginning. Before I tell you what was in that closet, you have to swear that you won't laugh at me. Okay, how am I supposed to do that? Fine, whatever. Just please don't laugh. Okay, so I was staring at the wall and I'm thinking about how I am probably gonna not die tonight in this room, right? Because I've seen enough horror movies to know better than to take notes from a creepy woman in a poorly lit motel room. But I did it anyway, and I wrote down everything she said. Now, you might think that was dumb, but you have to remember that I was desperate. So I wrote down everything she said, word for word. So then I took the note and I taped it to the closet door, and I was going to take a nap. See, I figured if anything came out of that closet, I'd be able to run. But something really weird happened. The closet started to bleed. Oh, gross. I know, right? And that wasn't even the worst part. If I had followed the instructions, none of this would have happened. But you have to remember that I was tired and scared and hormonal. So obviously, I opened the closet door and nope, nothing was in there. But then I realized that the entire time I had been holding my breath. So I exhaled slowly and this happened. Nope, sorry, no, not sorry. Never mind. I just wanted to let you know that this story is going to be continued in part 2, so make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, so you know when the next episode comes out. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this scary story, make sure to leave us a like and comment. Subscribe for more content. And now let's jump into the comments section to see what you guys had to say about this week's episode. Well, it is springtime, so don't forget to get your plants out of winter storage and give them some water. This story comes from our community member, Alexis. During the winter, I had just finished my finals and had a whole week off before my next classes started. My boyfriend and I decided to go to an indoor water park about 4 hours away from home. We were excited because my birthday was coming up soon. Would be a good way to celebrate the end of the semester and my upcoming birthday. When we arrived at the water park, everything seemed fine. The lazy river was slow and relaxing, the water slides were fun, and the hot tubs were hot. We spent all day there having fun and relaxing. Then we went back to the hotel room to rest before the evening activities started. Everything was fine until around 1 a.m. That's when we heard banging coming from the wall between our room and the next room. It sounded like somebody was trying to break down the wall. Obviously, we were freaked out sitting in the room. Eventually, the commotion died down and we fell asleep. In the morning after, of course, not sleeping at all, we checked out and left. We never stayed at that hotel again. To this day, I wonder what the hell was making that noise. Our next Reddit story is from Uncle. Some strange and creepy things have happened to me while staying in hotels or Airbnb. All of these places are miles away from each other, and there is no way they could be linked. I mentioned these stories separately in other posts, but here's how they all tie together. While traveling, I try to find accommodation with a pool, even if it's just a small hot tub. I love a good swim at night. There was one time when I was staying at an Airbnb, and I was the only person there. I was swimming at around 3 a.m. and I heard what sounded like screams in the vents. It was hard to describe, but it sounded like someone was in the vents screaming in terror and then being dragged away. I turned off the pool pump and I never heard anything like that again. A couple of years ago, I was staying at a hotel with my wife and son. We were all asleep when suddenly my son started screaming and crying. He wasn't having a nightmare because he doesn't remember any dreams. He was absolutely terrified. My wife and I couldn't calm him down. We eventually got him to stop crying by telling him we'll move rooms in the morning. The next day we moved to a different room and we never heard or saw anything. But to this day, my son refuses to stay in any hotel. The strangest thing happened in 2019. I was staying in a hotel in Portland, Oregon. It was a nice hotel that I would stay at regularly. One night I was getting a midnight snack and I walked out to the pool area. The pool was closed, but I thought I'd walk around anyway. I started to hear strange voices coming from the hot tub. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it sounded like people were having a heated argument. I figured it was just a group of college kids being loud and obnoxious. So I walked back to my room. Later that night, I was woken up to what sounded like screaming. It was the same type of voices that I heard earlier. I ran to the window and looked down. I saw several people gathered around the hot tub. They were gathered there with the lights off and they were chanting and screaming. This went on for about 30 minutes. In the morning, I told the front desk about what I'd seen and heard. She looked at me like I was crazy and told me that I must have imagined it. If anyone else had reported seeing anything like that, she would have mentioned it. She said that the only people who use the pool at night are families with kids. I know what I saw, and I will never forget the look on my son's face when he heard those voices. It's scary enough to hear screaming in your sleep, but it's even scarier when you wake up and realize that those screams are real. That was our campfire stories for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I've been your host, and I'll see you next time.
When we think of haunted places, we often imagine creaky old houses or dark abandoned hospitals. But the truth is, some of the most terrifying hauntings can be found in the most ordinary of places, like the Sunset Motor Inn. The story you just heard is part of a larger project, exploring haunted places. Now it's time to hear from you. Have you ever come across a haunting or a creepy experience while traveling? Maybe you were on a road trip and stopped for the night. Or maybe you stumbled across an unknown place that led to an unsettling discovery. Whatever your experience, share your story in the comments below. Who knows, it might be featured in a future episode. And here's an extra special treat. The first 50 people to share their stories will receive a special badge to show off on their profile. So don't miss out. Start typing and let the world hear your spooky travel tales. Now let's turn our attention to a place where the line between reality and nightmares blurs. A motel room, seemingly a sanctuary for weary travelers, becomes a stage for the inexplicable. A flickering light, a hidden camera, and the eerie presence of unseen eyes watching every move you make. This is not just a story. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most ordinary places can hold the most extraordinary horrors. But before we delve deeper into this unsettling tale, allow me to transport you to another realm of suspense and intrigue. Join us on a journey through the darkest corners of the internet, where every click takes you closer to the edge of digital danger. Will you survive the malware-ridden websites and navigate the treacherous paths of online deception? Only the boldest of souls dare to enter. Are you one of them? As darkness falls, the flickering neon light of the Sunset Motor Inn beckons weary travelers like moths to a flame. One such traveler is our protagonist, a soul-searching wanderer who seeks solace in the quiet hum of air conditioning and the promise of a night's rest. But little do they know that this seemingly ordinary motel harbors secrets that will turn their deepest fears into reality. As they settle into room 12, a sense of unease begins to creep in. A nagging feeling that they are not alone. The air grows heavy with anticipation, pregnant with the possibility of something lurking just beyond their sight. Their unease intensifies when they discover a hidden camera concealed behind the nightstand. Suddenly, the walls of the motel room become transparent, allowing an unseen observer to peer into their every move. Fear turns to paranoia as our protagonist questions the motives of the person or entity watching them. Is it a concerned lover, a watchful eye, or something more sinister? As the night drags on, the line between reality and nightmare blurs. Every creak of the floorboard sends shivers down their spine. Every shadow seems to writhe and twist into menacing shapes. The once comforting hum of the air conditioner transforms into a sinister lullaby that echoes their mounting dread. Sleep eludes their grasp, replaced by a desperate hope for dawn. But as the first rays of sunlight peek through the curtains, they are confronted by a haunting revelation. The fear that gripped them the night before was not just a figment of their imagination. The motel room, once a symbol of refuge, has become a chamber of secrets, forever changing their perception of safety and solitude. our protagonist is left grappling with the unsettling realization that even in the most mundane of places, horror can lurk around every corner. The Sunset Motor Inn stands as a chilling testament to the fact that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we cannot see. This is not just a story, it's a cautionary tale for those who travel the dark roads of life. Remember, the scariest places are not always where you expect them to be. Sometimes, they're right under your nose, masquerading as ordinary, waiting to pounce when you least expect it. So if you find yourself wandering through the labyrinth of life, always be aware of your trust your instincts, and never ignore that nagging feeling that something is amiss. For in the grand tapestry of existence, even the smallest detail can unravel into a nightmare.